It now gives me great pleasure to invite the 2024 RCSI Honorary Doctorate recipient, Professor Dorothy Roberts, to address our graduates, staff and guests.
Thank you, President McNamara, Vice Chancellor Kelly, and Deputy Vice Chancellor McGee. Graduates, you look amazing. I can't tell you how honored I am to receive an honorary doctorate from the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, and to have the opportunity to address you on this special day. Graduates, you have weathered not only the usual challenges of rigorous study, but also a worldwide pandemic and global crises. This is a moment to celebrate all that you've achieved in the face of these hurdles, and to thank your families and friends for their essential support. Accompanying the honor of receiving this degree is the tremendous joy I feel in learning that my book, Fatal Invention, has been useful to your medical training, to teaching you to be doctors who practice medicine in a new way, attentive to the impact of racism on your patient's health and the broader society, but without practicing race-based medicine. I've been so impressed by RCSI's commitment to confronting the long legacy of racism in medicine and to taking steps to eradicate it. Your Race Equality Action Plan, including your anti-racism reading initiative, which I've learned was started by students, and which you've incorporated into medical teaching, is a model for transforming medical education anywhere in the world. That transformation is an urgent yet daunting mission. The myth that human beings are naturally divided into biologically distinct races is hundreds of years old and deeply embedded still in science and medicine. Race was invented by European theologians to justify enslaving African people and dispossessing indigenous people, even if they converted to Christianity. The science that emerged during the Enlightenment was supposed to replace superstition with reason, but it adopted these racial folklore beliefs wholesale to continue employing them as an excuse for atrocious inhumanity, what I call their fatal invention. Now, doctors were essential purveyors of racial science. Why doctors? Because doctors claim to be authorities on how human bodies work, to be experts on how to diagnose and treat disease, and to practice their profession compassionately and impartially. So if doctors assert that Black people's lungs, hearts, and brains work differently than those of other human beings, and you can apply that to other groups as well, it seems to provide good support for treating those people differently and to offer an ethical justification for racial inequality. For example, Dr. Samuel Cartwright, who trained in the 1800s at the university where I teach, the University of Pennsylvania, issued perhaps the most powerful defense of slavery when he proclaimed that Black people innately had lower lung capacity than white people, so they had to be forced to work to be healthy. According to Dr. Cartwright, slavery was humane for medical reasons. You might ask why I refer to ideas that began circulating before the advent of modern medicine, to medical practices developed to support forms of inhumanity we now reject. But have we renounced those ideas and those practices? Just last month, a U.S. journal published a study examining U.S. clinicians' use of race-specific medication recommendations for treating cardiovascular disease. Based on interviews of physicians currently practicing family and geriatric medicine, the authors concluded that these physicians were using, quote, a variety of non-standardized, overlapping, and often conflicting definitions of race. In other words, the clinicians were treating their patients according to race without even agreeing on what race means or how to identify it. Now, the problem isn't just the confusion over racial definitions. The confusion reflects a more fundamental problem with race-based medicine. Treating patients by race perpetuates the myth that inequities in health are caused by innate racial differences, and it obscures how structural inequalities harm health. That's why, after centuries of practicing medicine according to race, medicine has made so little progress, if any, in ending health disparities. Here's what I've learned over 3 decades of teaching, writing, and activism for change. The key is that you have to radically reimagine the aspects of society that you want to transform. I sometimes turn to the great science fiction author Octavia Butler, who wrote, "There's nothing new under the sun, but there are new suns." There's nothing new under the sun. The ideologies of oppression are frustratingly resilient. But look up. There are new suns. We can imagine a different kind of society, a humane, equitable, and just society where human beings are equally valued and where we've eradicated the structural reasons for health inequities instead of clinging to archaic excuses for them. I've found as I've spoken to many audiences about anti-racism in medicine, what blocks many people is the unwillingness to imagine. When I call on doctors to stop treating patients by race, some tell me they can't possibly end that practice. They may not be able to explain why race is important, how they identify a patient's race, or even what race means. But they are wedded to using race as essential to their profession. They can't even imagine treating patients without relying on racial assumptions. Others say they're restricted by what they see in the clinic, which is their patients' symptoms and physiological features. They can't even imagine looking beyond the 4 walls of the clinic to consider the powerful social forces that affect their patients' health. I learned at lunch today that not too long ago, doctors could not imagine training students without teaching them Latin. But apparently, that practice has ended. This lack of imagination is even built into medical technologies. There are many tests that correct for race, so they automatically produce different results depending on the race of the patient. And in the US, and this may be true to some extent in Ireland, every field of medicine, from cardiology to pulmonology to obstetrics, nephrology, and endocrinology, relies on diagnostic tools and treatment guidelines that treat patients differently and categorically depending on their race. These technologies leave no room for healthcare providers to reimagine a better way. High-tech barriers to reimagining are intensifying. Both governments and corporations, including healthcare systems, increasingly use predictive analytics to automatically make decisions that profoundly affect people's lives. Because the data and algorithms are typically based on prior events that were shaped by structural inequalities, their predictions of the future are often just reiterations of past injustices. Big data's built-in biases therefore foreclose reimagining a future where these injustices no longer occur. Graduates, we should be asking instead, how can we design artificial intelligence that helps us imagine a different future so we don't replicate the wrongs of the past? What inspires me not to give up hope, despite these seemingly insurmountable obstacles, are medical students. In the last few years, I've seen unprecedented changes in medical education and practice. And medical students like you in a few minutes, you won't be students anymore, but medical students like you have been at the forefront of every effort. Students have called for learning structural competency and anti-racism in their medical training, for an end to race correction in medical practice, and for the medical profession to be at the forefront of struggles to end racial inequality. After all, your main job as students wasn't simply to mimic old ways of practicing your craft. It was to reimagine how to do even better. And you lived up to that challenge. And now, as you leave medical school, keep on reimagining throughout your future careers. Now is the time not only to envision a more humane and equitable world, but also to act collectively and courageously as if it were possible to create it. Looking out at this group of amazing students, you give me hope. You inspire me to act as if the better world I imagine can actually become a reality. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Professor Roberts, for your inspiring words and for your challenge to our graduates.